G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. Last time we got most of the core components of the new miner built, and now it's time to get all of the armor finished. So let's get on with that. Designing armor for a mining ship like this, I always find to be quite a difficult thing. There are a few techniques that I like to use that can help me get something that looks cohesive in design. And it is difficult to get that when you've got so many thrusters all over the ship and you've got so many core components, and you also don't want to make the ship much bigger than the size of the drills at the front. So you're kind of limited in how much you can expand out in each direction. And what I like to do is try and think about the lines that will run through the ship's design. So that's building blocks like this, where we go... Well, maybe not like that. Did I place those thrusters in a different spot? No. Oh, actually, maybe we could do this. So if we place a angled piece here, then on that, we place one like that, and then one like that. And that'll give us a line that'll run through there. We can block that off entirely. Let's weld a couple of these as we go so that we get a bit of a stronger feel of how it's going to look. And having that feel of where you're progressing and how things are looking is really important for armor since it's about style. So you can see that's kind of a line that runs down the side of the ship. We could even, to make this look a bit better, get rid of this block here, place a square one there, and then do our slope. So I think doing this will more incorporate the drills as part of the ship rather than being tacked on and make that line a bit stronger. So we'll do the same on the other side. Because we can't build with any symmetry mode or anything like that, I like to do it small bit by bit, as otherwise I tend to end up with the two sides looking slightly different. It's very difficult sometimes to remember exactly what you did from one side to the other if you build in large chunks. So building piece by piece and adding a bit one side, matching it, adding it, matching it, makes it easier to keep that symmetry, and I do want symmetry here. So start with those lines, then from our ejector we'll run another line that will join up onto what will surround our thruster. Now large thrusters will get an armor surround, sort of like this. I think that could work. And then that line's going to run straight across the back of the ship, which is why I planned these thrusters this way, as I had thought I might do something like this with the armor design. But if I'd placed them higher, I still probably could have been able to fit this in reasonably well. Whoops, that doesn't mean to go there. But I would have needed armor somewhere with those thrusters to be able to even place them. And I'm happy that this line has worked out with the rest of the design. I'll be tempted to break this up with one... Oh, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we do this? Rather than have that run straight across and be a bit dull, let's grab a slope and put a slope in here. This is kind of my smallest version of greebling, where even within a line, I'm adding some details to try and add a bit of interest to where things are going. So we've got this line that runs from this drill, goes up around the side, around to the back, and then back around all the way to the other side. And that gives us something to work off in terms of where we're going to join our armor up to next. I think we should also have some vertical lines, some lines running down from the front to the back of the ship on top. So if we use these bits as natural places to start them, and something I should note about these lines, they are actually semi-functional. It's a light way of doing armor that should protect the parts that I'm likely to hit most. Instead of having that as a half block slope, what we're going to do is we'll replace that piece, because I do want that in there. And I will place one of these tips in here, followed by a block, which will then have a normal half slope here. A normal armor slope there. And then, like we did over here where we've got the line angling downward, we can go and have this angle from here and have a bit of a diagonal run down there where we'll come all the way down to our rear thrusters here. Then we can do the same on this side, pair it up. And this isn't going to completely obscure the interior components of the design, but it'll make them a little bit protected. Not terribly well so, but a little bit. But hopefully this design will end up looking half decent by the time I'm done. Light armor tip, block, weld those up so we can make sure we can access everything. And at the end, we might even do some colouring on these different parts, like I did on the talisman, so that we can see so that we can highlight these armor pieces a bit more boldly. Might even go with the catwalk yellow. So we've got a bit of a design going on. There'll be a few gaps and pieces we'll need to fill in, and we can use some of the half slope and half slabs to fill in some of those pieces. I would like to place something in front of these though, which I think I will use one of these like that in front of these conveyor tubes. Need to do something a bit around this thruster as it's looking still like it's stuck on rather than actually being part of the ship. And that's an idea I use to guide where I'm going to go with my armor as well. I want things to look cohesive. And then to continue that idea, what I think we'll do is place these around on all four sides, which will link all those flat surfaces, which are the connection points for these large thrusters on each of their four sides, which makes it look more anchored and more part of the ship. So I finished up welding the antenna and the ore detector, so let's go in and turn those off so we don't use up power with them. Antenna off, ore detector off. And let's get back to our armor. So we were adding these pieces around the large thruster on that side, and I think that's starting to look a bit the part. On this side underneath, let's do the same thing, as I think it'll look better mirrored rather than trying to do something too different. So I basically just keep going around adding pieces of the armor until I'm happy with the look from every side. Starting out with those large, long pieces so that there's something continuous. And particularly with ships like this, I find that if I try and clad the entire thing in armor, it ends up quite bulky and difficult to use for its intended purpose. So if I've made this thing extra bulky by placing armor all over it, I'm going to end up having much greater difficulty fitting into the holes that I'm mining out, which is impractical, so I figure it's best avoided. I mean, the armor itself you could argue, is impractical anyway, but it's still set up in a way that most of the parts that I'm likely to bump, so anything on the roof, this armor is likely to hit first, anything on the sides, apart from the ejector, this armor band is likely to hit first, and same on the rear. So there are functional aspects to this armor plating without it adding too much mass, which is also incredibly important when we're talking about a mining ship. Any of you that have watched my Machinima series, Light Echoes, would recognize some of these armor patterns from one of the very large ships that I built for that. And I found that working on such a large construction, I needed a way to design portions of it independently of other pieces, and I found that doing an armor design like this worked for the way that my brain functions and gave me some interesting looking designs without being too onerous and have to plan out the entire thing from the very start. I do like to have an overall idea, but building this way means I can adjust it as I go and try and find something that works for me. Oops. And try and find something that works as I build it. Alright, I'm getting pretty happy with how things are coming along, but going to need to figure out some way of incorporating these engines into the armor cladding. And the way we'll do that is by adding a slope in there, and another one there, as well as having a block here, slope there, block there, and we can continue that all the way around and underneath. And finally link it up right to the connector. If I wanted to, I could also do this. If we place a line armor tip there, another one there, and then put the slope in between. Let's see how this looks, adding this little cap on top. Well, I think that looks better from the side, but whoa, it does not look better from the front. So we'll ditch that. Maybe what we'll do is grind off this piece, grind off this thruster, so it doesn't quite work where I had it for what I think I need to do. So let's place the thruster so that its nozzle is right above that. What the heck? Place the thruster there, putting its nozzle right above the spotlight. Then we can do something like this with the arm. Kind of looks like shoulder pads. Still not happy with that. So I think it is these two side pieces that are messing up what I'm trying to achieve here. So I'm going to try and move them as well. If we grind down both of them, maybe even like that will be enough. Because currently they're sticking out a bit over the side. If I embed them in a little bit, that might be enough. Just struggling to find an armor solution here that I'm happy with the look of. So if we then do this, this, and this. Yeah, I think that's ended up looking a bit better than what we had before. So I'm going to try and match the other side to the left. Those thrusters still look a little exposed, but I don't think I'm going to be able to come up with a way that I'll be happy with where they will look fully integrated into the design, since they're still tacked onto our cargo containers. I'm happy enough with where this one's placed, although I could possibly move it back one if I think it feels like it's sticking out too much later on. So let's match them up, and then we'll get on with designing more of the rest of this thing. So we've got that line running around there, and then over the top of these thrusters, since they are on the bottom, I am going to fully protect them. So we'll run a line from here, block, slope, block, 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 slope. So this will be the lowest part of the ship apart from the connector. And that way, if I have the connectors embedded into the floor of the garage, I'll also be able to rest the ship on these armor blocks as well. Don't really want to stick landing gear on here. I just want to be able to either rest it on those armor blocks or have it connected up to the connector. Last bit to design for the underside is this centerpiece, and I think we'll go from a single piece there to this point, then slope out, and then a line of armor blocks down the middle here. Hold that up, pop another armor cube in there. Let's just fill this across all the way. Some of this is unnecessary weight, but oh well. I think most people have figured out by now that I build intermittently for function and then intermittently for style, or at least what I think style is. Let's have a look at this from the mostly complete side. It still looks pretty chunky, but not too bad. Don't think we can really call this the Swan. It's not exactly pretty, but it's definitely an upgrade from what we've had with the Ugly Duckling and its minimalist design. One last little adjustment, and I'm aware of how long this has taken me. I do tend to get a bit lost in the design work. The sun has already risen, so I think it's time that we say close enough is good enough in just a moment. And I wanted to replace that slope where I had it, an extra band. So it felt like it made this look a little too chubby for what I was after. We'll put a cornice piece in here. Build those up. And then lastly, place a couple of slopes in here. I think that makes its profile look a little bit nicer. We will have to color this, and I intend to do that using a mod that I've had in this, but I have not actually used yet. I've used it in other situations, but I want to use this mod to paint the ship because I think it will make painting this a lot easier. I like this sort of lines and jagged edges on my industrial ships. Not so much on my warships, but on my industrial ships I do like this sort of design. And I think we can call that shaping complete, as long as I haven't missed some pieces, which I have, such as this bit. Last thing we need to do is add a few lights around the outside of this thing. So I'm going to try and tuck them in places where they're not going to stick out beyond the outer armor. So we can pop one light there. Oh, not vertically. Another light in there. So we'll have two on this side. We can have a couple at the rear. One there, one there. Then have the same on this side as we do on the other. There and there. And if we really find that we're not getting enough light at the front, why don't we put a couple under here? Oh no, that can't go there. That's in front of the thruster. What are you thinking, Splitsy? Jeez. I wonder if it'll look okay if we pop it on the end of this. Will that look a bit funny? I think we'll put both of these on. We may not even end up needing the spotlights all the time if these interior lights work well. There's going to be a whole lot of stuff we need to organize in the cockpit so that this ship is all set up as we want it to be. And now, it's time to set up the cockpit, and there are a bunch of things we're going to need to do. First up, let's disconnect from the base so that we've got a bit more, well, a little easier visibility in the control panel. Okay. Now let's grab all of our thrusters. We'll have a thrusters group. So I don't think that's including the large thrusters, is it? It's not. So let's save that again. Let's have that as our first control. Toggle blocks on and off. Let's turn them off. Now we can rest here on those little skis that we built, and no damage will come to the base from the thrusters. We want our backwards thrusters to be a group as well. So this is our reverse thrust. We want that so that we can turn those off and fly down the hill like we do with the ugly duckling. Next up, we want our batteries, and let's name these with, just for now, we're going to call this battery minor until I come up with a name for this ship. Minor 2. And the reason I want to name these is so that I can easily find them when they're connected to the base. Many people have mentioned that it does make your life easier if you name these things properly, and I've always been lazy about it, so I'm going to change that now. Batteries minor. Save. So that's a group. We also need our drills to be a group. Need our ejectors to be a group. we might make our gyroscopes a group as well, so that we can increase their power or decrease them if we need to once we're fully loaded. Now we'll make our interior lights, so let's call these, well, we'll just call them interior lights for now. And then we will want our spotlights as a separate group as well. Our ore detector doesn't need a group. Remote control does need a group. And this will be 00 remote. Save. That'll put it right at the top of the list. Then we need our spotlights as a group as well. The reason I want all of these things as groups is so that we can set up our G menu. So we want our thrusters first. The next thing I want is our batteries, and I want these to be set to recharge on and off. So when we connect up to the base, we can set them to recharge, just like we do with the ugly duckling. We want our drills, so we want weapons and tools, so we want that as the tool setup. Then also as a toggle on off. Then we want our ejectors as a toggle on off. We want our gyroscopes as an increase power and decrease power. Our interior lights as a toggle. Our spotlights as a toggle. And I should have left space for the other thing. Maybe we can get rid of that actually. I'm probably not going to use that as a mode. I'll just use the left and right clicks. So we want our reverse thrusters as a toggle on off. No, that's our whole group. Those are reverse thrusters. Toggle on off. So that should be all of the controls that we need at the moment, except for our antenna, which is a toggle on off, and our ore detector, which is a toggle on off. Everything else I think we can handle not having on the G menu. And that should be everything set. So let's turn off our lights since we don't need them. Let's set them up as well with our interior lights. I'd like them to cast as wide as they can, but they don't need to be bright. And that'll work. Now spotlights also probably don't need to be particularly intense, but I do want them to cast out as far as they can. Antenna, when it's on, it may as well be casting. Let's make this cast out to about 15,000. I don't need it to go quite out to 50. And then we need to decide on a name for this ship, because we're about to start blueprinting it so we can set up our projector as well. So we need to name this thing, and I think we should call it the Dallas Atmospheric Miner. And that's because even though I removed those other bits, it still looks like it's wearing shoulder pads. We'll definitely get some color onto this thing, but we don't need that just now. What we need to do is get a blueprint of it. And once I've fully colored it, I will have this up on the workshop. I'm not going to put it up until we've got the color on, which will hopefully happen in the next week or two. So Control B, create the blueprint. Let's hop in again and go to our projector. Where's our projector? There it is. And we want to set our blueprint to the Dallas. Okay. And we can see that it's showing up. And it's rotated the wrong way around. How did I manage that? Oh, probably because of the way I started the grid. I think I had the landing gear set off to the side from the way I've organized this. But that's okay, we can line everything up. What we need to do with our projector is keep projection. We need to change our pitch maybe. There we go. So you can see that now the drills are facing forwards. Our horizontal offset needs to be fixed. That's -6. I think it'll be our vert forward. And there we go. Build progress 354 of 354, and it's complete. So that will keep everything fine. Now, we want to toggle this off. When we toggle it on, it'll still say complete. So if we lose any blocks, we can just turn it back on, and we'll be ready to go to just weld up those pieces exactly as they were when we designed it. which is going to be very handy, as I suspect I'm probably going to knock bits and pieces off this over the time. Final thing we need to do to set this up, and boy, it takes a lot of setting up. We need to get our small conveyor sorters to whitelist. There's stone in here. Stone, add. Drain all on. Same with this one. Unfortunately, we can't select them both at the same time. And then set up our ejectors. Throw out, collect all. And now, I'm not going to call it there. Let's actually go get a load of iron. Let's see how well this thing handles. Let's pop our thrusters back on. It weighs 47,000 kilograms already, so it's a pretty heavy little ship. Let's turn off our reversing thrusters. Start coasting down the hill. And we've got 15 minutes of charge. Maybe we should charge this up first. Let's not play this too risky. Let's charge this up and then we'll go for a first mining trip. I'm just a bit nervous about running out of charge halfway through our very first trip and losing our brand new ship. Fully recharged in 10 minutes. Okay. Let's build that connector and see if we can knock over this thing and right it while that's getting done. So we've got a connector now, and I need to figure out how to flip the ugly duckling over. Let's hop in and take control. And I apparently can't... Oh, here we go, here we go, here we go. Thrusters on. Let's do it. Come on. Yeah, that was actually not that difficult. And now, we can hook this sucker up to the base as well. Since it only needs power, as we're not going to be using it preferentially over the other one, it doesn't need to be connected up to the cargo system, it just needs to be connected up to the base. And park. May as well leave it to get fully charged and then it'll always be ready to go just in case I need it. Ha! Excellent. Alright, let's see how much battery power we've got in this thing now. Oh, that's not how you spell battery. Yeah, that's most of the way done. Let's just get going. Recharge off. Park off. Fly away. Let's head off and grab some iron since we're mostly out of it. We'll have to see how much, just how much we can get away with carrying on this thing. As I have not done the maths or used any of the available calculators to figure out just what I could lift with this. Now this is what we should be able to do a lot better than we could with the other with the ugly duckling. And that is see what we're doing, because if I turn on all of my lights... Haha! We can see all around. Let's see how well those ejectors are doing with our stone volume. If we have a look at our inventory, we've got some iron in the cockpit, we've got some stone in the connector, stone in the cargo. So we've still got a fair bit of stone in here. Looks like the ejectors don't quite work as quickly as I'd like, which is unfortunate. Although I didn't exactly try and drill this out in the most efficient of manners. Try and be a little more selective about what rocks I drill with the left click, rather than using the right click to just destroy all the rock. Getting close to 100,000. We can still lift. But you can see that when I do, we actually reach the max of our battery power. It's the power symbol, if I'm leaning forwards, goes to over 100. Well, goes to 100 and glows bright red. But if I make sure I'm horizontal, we're still okay. So we've got cockpit full, the drills have a little bit in them. That means the cargo containers must all be full, and they are. So we could grab a little bit more, but I'm going to take it easy and take it back now. Since, as you can see, I still do hit that 100% of my power output when I go up, which is less than optimal. So let's do our usual trick, turn off our reverse thrusters. But we've still got good lift, so even though we do run out of battery capacity, we can still fly quite comfortably like this. So I think it's a reasonable balance. Probably could get it better if I spend a bit more time balancing them out, but I'm reasonably happy with this for now. And we're coming back with almost 50,000 kilograms of ore, which is pretty close, I'd say, to 3 trips with the ugly duckling. So that is a solid result. And now that we've got an idea of the size of this, when I get round to it, I can design a rover capable of carrying this, as I know the size of it. Oh, gotta be careful with that. As I go forward and right, I lose power and I drop. Maybe we will need to figure out how to get a 4th battery onto this. I will have a think about that, where I can sneak one in so that we are okay for power. So this makes me slightly nervous. And park, recharge. Well, it's not yet coloured, but I'm pretty happy with this little miner. If you guys have any other name suggestions, I'm happy to hear them. I'm reasonably set on the Dallas, but who knows? Like the Tick, people could come up with something that does grab me and makes me do something silly like create a bright blue, hideously blue rover that's supposedly military and stands out like a sore thumb. There's that, and plenty more to come. So I'll see you then.